You need a husband and you need a strong daughter. The giant widow declared, a struggling cowboy standing in the middle of his half-collapsed barn like a thunderstorm in boots. Ailey Harper dropped the shovel mid-lift. Straws scattered, his breath caught. No one had said anything like that to him in years. Not even close. Maeve Callahan didn't wait for him to answer. She stepped closer, towering. Her coat flapped in the wind like a flag, mud up to her calves, her wild face set like carved stone. You're broke, beaten, and bone lonely, she said, eyes locked on his. And I've got land, firewood, and the kind of silence most men would kill for. She pulled a folded paper from her coat. Marriage contract, no flowers, no ring, no kissing hands, and whispering lies, she said. Used work, food, a roof, and maybe one day a girl child strong enough to outlive both of us. The only sound was the wind cracking through a hole in the barn wall. Eli didn't move. His hands, blistered and shaking, were still gripping the splintered handle of a tool older than him. It looked like a man who just been handed a miracle or a curse. Maeve tossed the paper on a hay bale. Sunsets in 4 hours. That's how long you have. Then she turned and walked out, leaving muddy boot prints and a man with nothing left to lose. 2 months ago, Eli Harper was riding cattle, fist full of hope and a future still holding shape. But hope had a way of bleeding out slow. His horse was dead, his brother gone, his ranch, stolen out from under him by a banker with ink-stained hands and a polished smile. Maeve Callahan knew all of it. And still she chose him not for love, not for charm, because he was the last honest man in Dust Hollow. And she didn't have time for men who smiled while lying. At sunset, he walked her ranch with his name signed on that paper, and his father's knife strapped to his thigh. Not because he expected danger, but because something about Maeve Callahan made you walk armed. She was waiting on the porch, arms folded. Firewood stacked behind her like a wall. The house behind her was stone and muscle, bigger than he'd imagined. Like her, I signed it, Eli said, holding out the paper. May didn't take it. She just looked him over once, eyes moving from his boots to the way his shoulders slumped from too much life gone wrong. You still want to die? She asked plainly. He blinked. Because I'm not marrying a man who's halfway out of the world, she added. I need someone who will stay. Someone who will fight when she cries at midnight and asks why her hands ain't small like other girls. Ailey swallowed hard. I'm not leaving, he said. Maeve nodded once. That was enough. They married those days later with a rusted horseshoe nailed to the altar post. A pastor who owed May 3 favors and only the wind as a choir. Maeve didn't wear white. She wore black with boots and a wide leather belt like she was headed to war. Eli didn't wear anything new, just cleaned what Louis had and combed his hair with his fingers. When the preacher said, "Do you take this man?" Maeve interrupted with, "I do." Let's get to it. The townsfolk didn't understand it. Whispered, pointed. She could have married anyone. Sis lost her mind. He's half a man. Maeve didn't care. She never had. The first night, Eli slept on the floor. Not because she told him to, but because the bed felt too big, too clean, too permanent. Maeve dropped a blanket beside him and said nothing. She didn't expect sweetness. She expected work. And work is what they did. Sun up to sundown. They built a life like it was a fence post. One hole, one nail, one blister at a time. He fixed the north gate. She chopped with faster than he could stack it. He showed her how to repair a wagon wheel. She showed him how to dress a deer faster than it bled out. They didn't touch, not once. But that night, when the wind shook the windows and the coyotes cried like babies lost in the dark, they listened to each other breathe through the wall. And somehow that was enough. One morning she brought him a steaming mug and a bowl of stew so thick you could stand a spoon in it. Why do you want a daughter? He asked. Maeve sat beside him on the porch. Cold air burned their faces, but neither flinched. Because the world's unkind to girls like I was, she said. Tall, loud, smart, and married. It chews them up or teaches them to shrink. Ailey stared at the field, frost like glass on the grass. You want to teach her not to shrink? You want to teach her to swing? They didn't speak again for an hour. But in that silence, something shifted. Not love, not yet, but a beginning. That night, as Eli was chopping wood in the dark, headlights came through the trees. A truck. Love. Round. Mabe stepped out with a rifle slung over one shoulder and a gun that made your blood cold. Harit Holt, the cousin of her dead husband. Rich, man, pity. He got out slow, grinning like a snake in Sunday clothes. Do you think signing some paper makes this your land, Mabe? He said, eyes flicking to Eli. Or are you just playing house again? Maeve didn't blink. You got 10 seconds to drive off. Or what? Harit laughed. Eli didn't wait. He walked forward, shovel still in hand, and stood between Jared and the porch. No shouting, no threats, just the quiet of a man who decided losing wasn't an option anymore. Harit looked him over like weighing beef. You think you scare me? No, Elias said. I think I'm the reason you're still breathing. Something in Jared's smile died. And after a few seconds too long, he got back in his truck and left. Mabe walked up beside Eli. You meant that? She asked. I don't say things twice, he replied. She stared at him, then nodded just once. That night, she didn't hand him a blanket. She opened the door to her room. And for the first time since they met, Eli Callahan didn't sleep on the floor. The morning after they shared a bed, Maeve didn't speak a word about it. She woke before him, started the fire, chopped kindling, brought in eggs from the coop, and when he finally staggered into the kitchen, half dressed and half lost in his own skin, she slid him a plate of cornbread and said, Eat. Like nothing had changed. But everything had. He sat across from her, their knees nearly touching under the small table. Steam rose between them, but it wasn't from the food. Maeve didn't ask for promises. She didn't want whispers or vows. She just watched him, quiet, studying. And Eli realized something strange. She wasn't waiting for him to be romantic. She was waiting to see if he'd disappear now, that he'd been let in. He didn't. He stayed. By the next week, they'd fallen into a rhythm that made no sense on paper, but fit like a well-worn glove. They worked hard. They barely spoke. But when they did, it mattered. Why don't you drink? She asked once as they repaired the barn roof side by side. Because when my brother drank, I bled, he said. She nodded once, hammered the next nail without comment. Anoterte, he asked, why'd your first husband die? She didn't flinch. Rode out drunk. Thought he could beat the blizzard. He couldn't. She tossed him a wrench and kept sawing. That's how they loved each other. Not with flowers, but with truth. One afternoon while May was in town trading pelt seed, Eli went out to the east pasture. There, pinned against the post was a note in red ink. You took what ain't yours. I'll be back for it. No name, no signature. But Eli knew Jared'd stink when he saw it. He burned the note in the fire before May returned. Didn't they say a word? Not yet. He just sat on the porch that evening, sharpening the axe until it gleamed like a mirror. Quiet, focused, like a storm preparing itself. When Maeve came home and saw him, she stopped in the doorway. What happened? Nothing. Elite. She knew, but she didn't push. She poured 2 cups of tea and sat beside him as the sun fell behind the hills. That night, she didn't just open her door to him. She reached for his hand in the dark and he let her. 2 weeks later, Maeve missed morning chores. That never happened. Eli found her in bed, pale and sweating, hand on her belly. What's wrong? He asked, already reaching for her wrist, counting pulse, touching her forehead. She didn't answer right away. Then, with her voice barely more than wind, she said, I think I'm pregnant. The air left the room like a punch. Eli stood still. His mouth opened, then shut. You don't have to say anything, she muttered. He didn't. He just knelt beside the bed, took her hand, and kissed her knuckles. Slow, steady, solid. I told you I wouldn't leave, he said, Maeve didn't cry. That wasn't her way. But for the first time, her eyes softened so much it hurt to look at her. Guess we're getting that daughter, he whispered. The town exploded with gossip within days. That can't be his baby. She married him for protection. Now look what she's gotten herself into. Sis too old for that anyway. But Maeve didn't listen. She wore her pregnancy like armor. And Eli walked beside her like a shield. When Mrs. Talbot at the general store made a comment about miracle babies in the mud, Eli placed a sack of potatoes down gently, turned and said, "Say something like that again, and I'll forget I ever learned to be gentle." The whole store went silent. Even the floorboards seemed to stop creaking. Maeve watched the whole thing, and when they walked out, she didn't say thank you. She just reached over, hooked her pinky through his as they walked, and said, "You're good at that." But peace doesn't last long on prairie land. Not when a man like Jared Holt wants what you've got. He came back in the middle of the night, riding hard with 3 men behind him, armed, drunk, angry. They didn't knock. They lit the edge of the east fence on fire and waited for the smoke to wake them. Eli saw it first, ran for water, screamed for Maeve to stay inside, but she didn't listen. She never had. She grabbed a rifle and stormed outside like war herself. Her nightgown soaked from the pump, her eyes blazing. "I told you," she shouted into the smoke. "This land is mine." Jared laughed from the shadows. "That baby yours, maybe, or is it this fool's? Don't matter. Either way, neither of you will see winter." That's when Eli stepped into firelight, barefoot, shirtless, blood on his knuckles from smashing a window to reach the hose. "I'm done playing humble," he said. Maybe tossing the rifle. He caught it one-handed. What followed wasn't shootout. It was a reckoning. Eli didn't fire first. He waited, calm, steady, terrifying. And when Jared's man raised his pistol, Eli shot in the leg, then the shoulder of the second one. The third ran before he could even lift his gun. Jared was alone, shaking. "Go," Eli said. "You bring fire here again. You won't limp home next time." Jared opened his mouth like he might argue. Then they stepped up beside Eli. A second rifle in hand. Barrel tilted just enough. Jared laughed. He didn't ride. He walked back down the road. He came from inside the house. Mabe stood in the kitchen, hands trembling now that the danger had passed. Eli wrapped the towel around her shoulders, poured her water, and whispered. "It's done." She stared at him. Really stared. "You could have killed him." "He would have," he said. "If he touched you." Silence. Then Maeve whispered. "I'm scared." "Of him?" Eli asked. "No," she said. "Of how much I love you." He didn't answer. He just leaned in and kissed her forehead soft like a promise. And when their foreheads touched, she whispered, "Marry me again." "Ismail." "You already did." "Do it right," she said. He nodded. Ella even get a ring this time. They married again that fall. No preacher, no guests, just the two of them barefoot in the back pasture, standing in a ring of wild sunflowers Maeve had grown from her mother's seeds. Eli placed a simple silver ring on her finger, his mother's. Maeve didn't. She slipped her grandfather's band onto his. He said, "With this ring, I promise to stay, to fight, to raise whatever comes our way, even if the world don't understand it." She said, "With this ring, I promise never to shrink so you can feel tall and never to let you fall alone." They kissed once, and it was more than any paper, prayer, or parade could have given them. The baby came early. Too early. The contraction started in the middle of a snowstorm, howling winds, as thick as glass across the windows, and no help for mouths. Mabe screamed once and bit down on a rag. She didn't want Eli to see her cry. But Eli didn't flinch. He boiled towels. He fetched water. He sat behind her and let her crush his hands till the bone screamed. At 3:14 de la mañana, under lantern light and God's thunder, their daughter entered the world, red-faced and angry as the wind outside. Maeve held her to her chest, sobbing into her hair, whispering, "You came. You came anyway." They named her June after the month Mabe's mama died and the only month that ever felt warm in Wyoming. Eli held her like she was wrapped in fire. And right there in the middle of the storm, he said, "I swear I'll teach her how to swing back." Mayav looked up exhausted and blood-streaked and replied, and I'll teach her never to say sorry for being strong. The ranch changed after June came. Not the work that stayed brutal, unrelenting, thankless. But the way they moved through it changed. They smiled more, touched more. Mabe started singing when she cooked. Oki but joyful. Eli started writing in a notebook he hid under mattress. Note this for June just in case life took him early. The world outside still judged him. Still whispered. But inside their stone house, laughter lived again. And June, small and wilted, became the flame that lit everything. Then one night, 3 months later, a rider showed up at the gate. Mai was rocking June by the fire. Eli answered the door. It was a sheriff hat in hand, eyes down. I thought you should hear it from me, he said. Harith holds dead. Eli didn't move. Mabe rose from the chair slowly, the fire crackled behind her, casting shadows across her sharp face. How? She asked. Drank, drowned in his own well, took a few of his boys with him. One survived, said Jared had been planning another run on your ranch. Eli closed the door behind the sheriff without saying a word. The storm outside wasn't from the sky that night. It was inside them. Mabe sat back down, June in her arms. Eli stood across the room, hands clenched, chest tight. You think it's over now? Mabe whispered. Eli didn't answer right away. He walked over, kneeling beside her. He reached for June's little foot. No, he said. The kind of hatred Jared carried, it doesn't die with him. He looked up at her. It waits for a crack. Mabe swallowed hard and suddenly her voice softened. Then we don't give it one. The next spring, Maeve took June into town for the first time. The streets fell silent when they walked in, not because they were surprised Maeve was a mother. That rumor had already spread like wildfire, but because the baby looked just like Eli. Same quiet stare, same deep knowing eyes. When they entered the store, Mrs. Talbot looked ready to spit venom. Maeve didn't blink. She handed the baby to Eli, leaned over the counter, and said, say one thing, just one. Mrs. Talbot didn't. But when they walked out, Eli looked at Maeve and said, I hope June grows up to be exactly like you. Mabe looked at him sideways, tall and terrifying. No, he said, unsacable. One night, as summer arrived, Eli couldn't sleep. He stepped outside, sat on the porch with June on his chest. She was teething, angry. Maeve joined him with a blanket, wrapped it around all three of them. They sat in silence. Fireflies blinking across the field, the moon watching like an old friend. Eli whispered, you think she'll be all right in this world? Mabe kissed June's forehead. She'll be more than all right, she said. She'll be too much for it. Ismail. I hope so. The next morning, they woke to a letter nailed defense. No name, just one line. Ju took what he left behind. Mabe read the letter twice, then burned it in the sink. She didn't speak for 2 days. Eli knew better than to ask. They'd seen that silence before. The kind of quiet that comes before something breaks. He tightened the perimeter, sharpened the tools, loaded every rifle. By the third night, May finally spoke. I thought it was over, she whispered. Dog burying Jared buried the fight. Eli leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You don't get to erase men like that in one generation, he said. You outlive them. You outteach them. You outlove them. Mabe looked at June, asleep in her arms. She's the reason they'll come again. No, Eli said. She's the reason we stand. They didn't have to wait long. 5 nights later, someone tried to set fire to the south fence. Eli saw the glow from the upstairs window. He grabbed his coat, shotgun boots, rushed outside. Mai met him halfway, rifle lung. No words. They moved like clockwork. But this time, the fire wasn't the point. It was a distraction. A man crept toward the back door with a blade. Another toward the barn. They weren't drunk like Jared's crew. These men were calculated, paid, quiet. Eli saw the glint of metal just before it reached the door. He fired once. The man dropped. Mabe didn't flinch. Another man lunged from the shadows. She spun one clean shot to the leg. He screamed. Fell into the dirt. Beth. Eli stormed over. Fury boiling under his skin. Who sent you? Jared's brother. The man gasped. He wants the girl. Said she ain't right. Said, so the land needs a name that matters again. Mabe cocked her rifle. You tell him. He wants the girl. Said she ain't right. Said, so the land needs a name that matters again. Mabe cocked her rifle. You tell him, she said. We already gave her one. And with a calm steadiness that made the night air freeze, she fired into the dirt beside his head. He ran, limping, panicked, bleeding. Eli walked over, put out the last of the flames with his coat. Maeve leaned against the fence, breathing hard. I'm tired, she whispered. I know, he said. She looked at him then, not strong, not invincible, just a woman who had survived too much and still chose a love anyway. You think we can raise her without making her carry all this weight, she asked. Eli nodded slowly. We don't raise her to carry it, he said. We raise her to break it. The next week, they installed a gate with a name carved into the arch. Callahan Ridge, below that in smaller letters. Home of June, born of fire, raised by storm. 10 years passed. June became taller than most boys her age. She rode horses before breakfast. Sewed cleaner than the sheriff. Read books twice her level, built fences while complained. The town still whispered, she's too rough. She don't smile. She don't wear dresses. But June didn't care because at home her mama told her she was forged like iron and her daddy read her poetry by the fire when her hands were blistered. Every night may have tucked her in with one line. The world's scared of girls who don't flinch. And every night, June whispered back, then I'll never flinch. One fall afternoon, June asked Eli, why mama pick you? Eli smiled. Because I needed her, he said. And she needed someone who wouldn't run when things got ugly. June tilted her head. And did you ever run? Only toward her, he said. Mabe died on a spring morning. Sammy chair where she first rocked June. No warning, no sound, just sunlight through the window and the smell of lilacs outside. Eli found her with a book in her lap and a faint smile on her lips.